Join me, Ed Bloxham, in a journey through the music of Sergei Lyapunov, presented prosaic and obsessively, Opus 1 to Opus 71. Now we're on Opus 3, the Rêverie du soir, Party of the Night, you might translate that as. A short piece. Surely Lyapunov lets his proverbial hair down. Of course not, it's Lyapunov. He wouldn't do that. It is a possibility that this was published in a volume with other composers, which is why it's so short. That was the kind of thing that would often happen with music of the period. I'm not terribly interested in biography, so I'll just leave that as a maybe. Look it up if you want. What we have here certainly is a very distinctive and unique piece of music. Again, Lyapunov is not going easy on himself. One important feature is a certain impressionistic impulse. So already where Lyapunov is introducing another element into his music. What is impressionism in music? Well, impressionism in music is where accompaniment and tune mix together, and where the sound that results is as much the point of the music as expressing the tune. In most music, you have a nice clear tune. If the point is the whole lot, the sound over the simplicity of the tune, that's an impressionistic impulse. We get that right from the opening of the Rêverie du soir, because Lyapunov presents this opening motion, which, despite being sort of introductory, moving around, still with the certain way it steps, you can hear elements of a pseudo melody happening. We then get a little link passage. Won't come as a surprise that this material will appear later in alternative guise. Then we get our main theme. It's not quite like the Opus 1 where the accompaniment is telling the theme what to do, but the motion of the accompaniment is certainly an extremely important feature of this theme. We then get a counter theme, and then a hint back at another version of the main theme. I was thinking about this piece, about the form of the piece. Was it a kind of rondo variations where you have an episode and then you go back to the beginning material again, and an episode of beginning material again? However, this is late Romanticism. This is Lyapunov. This is not Tchaikovsky and Taneyev, who were still following the rules, and Balakirev, who was still following the rules. The impulse is not to go back and repeat, but to move on, to change, constantly change. So when the main theme comes back, it's always evolving. Just like in real life, even if you go back and do the same thing, you're going to be informed by what happened before. There's a kind of musical complexity in that, again, which is more this part of the 19th century rather than even though the Schumanns et al. Were starting to do this, starting to come back with more informed musical material. Really, when form starts to collapse, that's when you can just mush it all together. Another feature of late Romantic music was this pace through which you go through harmonic change. In older music, you might have chord. Your chord is going to last basically for the bar. You might have a simple chord passage, a recognizable chord passage that lasts for 4 bars. In late Romantic music, the chords are changing much quickly. So when now in the Opus 3, we're motioning through harmony, and it's quick. You're going through chords quickly. To go too much into what exactly those chords are, but the motion is quick. Is the takeaway. When the opening material returns, the two themes are now glued together. So again, it's not going back to the old tune, because the tunes are now glued together through our complex harmony. We're now mixing and matching. So then the intro material now joins the sound. I'm trying to find appropriate words to express, because it's not regular form. It's now a sound There's themes and intro material. The next section is the clearest restatement of the opening theme. However, again, it's informed because the theme is happening in the left hand, right over the top. There's a fast motion twiddly. Twiddly is a harsh word. Fast motion accompaniment over the top. The harmony's changed. The context is changed. This is the clearest sense of a return, but it's not it's not as clear a return as, say, a sonata form. This for the example of this is that this moment doesn't last for very long, and already we're into another counter theme. This next section is illustrates something I wasn't expecting to bump into quite this early. One of the reasons I wanted to listen to all of Lyapunov was because I had a grand theory that I wanted to test. My grand theory was related to the composer Sergei Rachmaninoff. Rachmaninoff is very much late romantic, and he ends up, by the end of Rachmaninoff's music, you can hear he's fundamentally a conservative. However, there is an element which I couldn't really identify. I said, is he the greatest, most original music composer ever? Or is there something I'm missing? Of course, it's not. He's fundamentally conservative. And verily, I heard it. I started to hear it in Lyapunov. I started to hear this sort of proto Rachmaninoff in Lyapunov, which is perhaps then a link to late Russian music of the century. The next part of the Opus 3 is the most Rachmaninoff sounding of the work, where the way that the accompaniment helps the tune is the way that Rachmaninoff would do it. This is, of course, before he was born. Well, certainly before he started writing music. So this happened first. There's a possibility that this kind of music originated more with César Cui, who was one of the original Mighty Handful. If Lyapunov is in Balakirov's second circle, I don't know César Cui that well. I'm interested in looking because it does seem more original than, say, Taneyev and Tchaikovsky. There's got to be somewhere where this music comes from. So Rachmaninoff comes from Lyapunov. Where does Lyapunov come from? So we have the most Rachmaninoff-like section of the piece, and as an illustration of the fact that the music has evolved, we do get a return to the intro, but it's so heavily altered now by what's happened before, and we're mixing in thematic material. The resolution of the Opus 3 is an evolution of what's happened. So it's a journey, it's a story, it's an A B C D E F G story, as opposed to a ABA whatever returning story. It's a progression, it's an evolution. It's complex. It has impressionistic elements, new late romantic elements, all of which adds up to somewhat more than you'd think in 5 minutes of music. It's so much so that I've talked now for somewhat longer than the length of the piece. It tells you how much is going on, which tells you how complex this music is. But I will shut up because you're probably tired of my voice. I certainly am. I've been Eben Bloxham. My voice will continue to be Eben Bloxham. You don't have to live with it. Lucky. Please like, leave comments, subscribe, or don't.